I came across a quote from you from, 4 years ago, more than that, in which you said that you prayed that you'd drop dead before you were 80 because you probably could not work at full schedule. Thank God your prayers were not answered. But now that you're 84, you're going to try for 90?
No. No, please God, I don't want to live that long. The reason I prayed to die at 80 was because I felt that my usefulness would be finished. But it isn't. And so I'm happy to work, and I'm happy to go to heaven, and when I get there, I'll ask the good Lord to send me back after a few days of happiness there to come down and do some more work here.
What is it you're doing now?
I'm writing my own autobiography. It is called Clay. That is to say, the clay refers to me. The treasure in clay is the vocation.
Mm-hmm. Bishop Sheen, do you foresee in the distant future any change in the church's stand, the Catholic Church's stand, and certain issues today which have been quite controversial? Certainly abortion has been. Do you foresee ever any change in that?
No.
Not at all?
No, because we have no power over the divine law. Furthermore, suppose we did. Suppose John Paul II tomorrow said, all right, bring out your contraceptives. Pull out your scalpels. Unplug the children from their wombs. Marry as you please. Unmarry as you please. Fornicate as you please. What would be the difference between the church and the world?
But meanwhile, Bishop Sheen, you do have many women who have had abortions who go to church.
Yes, there's no reason why they shouldn't go to church and pray the good Lord will forgive them. That's good. I'm glad they do.
You mean better that if they're going to have an abortion that they still go to church than not at all?
Yes, exactly.
How do you see children and being able to teach human values to children? How do you teach them right from wrong when they see otherwise around them?
First of all, children have within themselves a built-in comprehension of right and wrong. In the beginning of their lives, everything is baby hurt. After a while, they distinguish between the fire and themselves. And it isn't wrong until they distinguish between things that the parents approve and things that they do not. This idea of saying, leave the children be free, let them grow up to do whatever they want, then they will decide. Why do we have pot training?
When we talk about the family, Bishop Sheen, are you distressed by the fact that in many cases you have men and women living together without marriage?
Yes, and principally because it is the destruction of love. Unfortunately, in English, we have only one word for love. So we have to say, I love pickles, I love the New York Mets, I love God. The Greeks had 3 words for it. And 2 of them that were important were eros, which was friendship love, when Freud made the erotic, or sex. Then there's the agape, sacrificial love. Now when you're speaking of the family and these new customs that have sprung up, we have only eros, the erotic love. We have a love in which the ego projects itself into another and says, I love you, when all that is loved is the pleasure that is found in the other person. And this kind of love is the destruction of the family and the destruction of the human person. As a matter of fact, I believe one of the reasons why we have so much neurosis and psychosis is this tremendous affirmation of the self. I gotta do my thing. I have to have my pleasure. You bend yourself to my will. When real love does not mean to have and to own and to possess. It means to be had, to be owned, to be possessed. The ancients were right in giving Cupid an arrow, something that wounds. something that sacrifices self for another. Do these people ever show love, for example, for their neighbor and for the downtrodden? No, it is generally for the satisfaction of self. So this kind of life is producing neurotics and psychotics in our civilization.
You mean more so than ever?
More so than ever, yes. People today are without goals and without purposes. That is one of the reasons why our civilization is erotic. We try to make the intensity of a sex experience atone for a want of a purpose in life. Just as when we're lost in an automobile, we drive faster.
Take your average woman in mid-30s, say, who is a mother, a wife. She's bored, she's restless. You say that she is likely or would regard a sexual experience as something that might fulfill her?
One, I would say nothing about that particular woman, but she has something that can give her a passion. That's the raising of children. Believe me, she's got some arrows that she has to shoot. And she'll be held responsible whether or not those arrows ever hit the mark.
Well, what can you say to that woman, though, to make her aware of this, what you're saying about raising those children? Because the tendency is to say, oh, I can't wait to get out of the house, away from children. I'm so tired of children underfoot.
All right. What do you say to anybody, not just that woman? What do you say to anybody?
Yeah.
What do you want? Why are you bored? You want three things. If you could take your heart out as a kind of crucible and distill out of it its inmost cravings, what would they be? One, you want life. Not for 5 more minutes. Not for 5 more years. What else do you want? You want truth. Not just what you read in the paper. Truths of geography, literature, science, everything. We hate to have secrets kept from us. Thirdly, what do you want? Love. And a love without satiety. A love without fed-upness. A love that is constant. That's what you want. Now, do you find them here? Do you find life here? No. Why? Because life is mingled with its shadow death. We get old. Truth, that's mingled with its shadow error. Love, that is mingled with its shadow hate and satiety. So here we are in this rat race. Something we want, something we can't find. What's the answer? Are we to say life is a mockery? Or are we to say, as we might in this room, what's the source of light? Not under the chair, there's light is mingled with shadow. Not behind the bookcases, there light is mingled with darkness. We would say as logical beings, well, source of light, I have to go out to something that's pure light. So, if you want a life and a truth and a love, a life that is not mingled with the shadow death, and a truth that is not mingled with the shadow error, and a love that is not mingled with the shadow hate, you want pure life, pure truth, pure love. That's what you want. That's only a definition of God. And when you want that, you have everything, and then everything fits in place.
So what you're saying is that we've been too permissive.
Yes. Hoping that the children will like us, and they don't. That's the penalty of being permissive. There is nothing that helps develop character of a child as much as a pat on the back, provided it is given hard enough, low enough, and often enough.
Is this how you were raised?
I had one spanking, only one in my life. We had a horse, and I was a boy, Morgan. We kept in the barn back of our home in Peoria. And I was to feed the horse every noon. And I would go out and cut off some of the hay that was in a bale and feed it down the chute to Morgan. And my father came home this noon and said, "Did you feed the horse?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I was just out there. There wasn't any hay in the bin." And I said, "Well, I fed the horse." And evidently Morgan was hungry that day and ate it all. So he gave me a spanking for lying. My mother said to my father, no, he fed the horse. I saw him. Well, my father said, well, that spanking will do for the next time. But I never received another. Truth is effusive. And everything good tends to diffuse itself. Like the sun diffuses itself in light and heat and flowers and perfume. And if I had some knowledge of truth and goodness, I just wanted it to overflow. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh.
You have had friendships with people who have you've met in prison.
Yes. And one of the pictures that you may see is this Zucchetta out through prison bars.
Yeah.
And one of the prisoners came to the prison gate with me, and I had that in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I intended to give it to the man who was nearest me. And I gave it to this one, Nick. I remember him very well. And he said, this for me. He began to cry and went back to his cell. Later on, they sent me this painting of his hands reaching out, holding that Zucchetto. One of the questions is, how do you begin when you talk to prisoners? They think you have the white hat. They have the black hats. Everything depends on the first line. So this was my first line. I said, gentlemen, I want you to know there is one big difference between you and me. You got caught. In other words, we're both sinners. But let's start there.
As you look back, we can say that you certainly have been a rebel within the church. You've had very strong feelings, and you have not shied away from stating those feelings. If you had to do it over again, would you do it the same way?
I would try to be better.
In what way?
Try to be holier.
Don't you think you've been holy?
Not holy enough, no.
Really?
No.
What do you mean being holier?
I'd try to be more Christ-like in every single way.
How do you feel about women not being able to become priests?
Well, how do I feel about, first of all, that isn't a feeling. That has nothing to do with it. If the good Lord wanted women to be priests, he would have made his own mother one. And it isn't a sex choice. And we won't get into that. It's something that's hidden deeply in the scriptures, where a man is the symbol of Christ and the woman is the symbol of the church. As in the Old Testament, man was the symbol, the husband was the symbol of God, and Israel was his wife. So the old prophet said, Israel, thou art my spouse, God speaking. That's where the mystery is hidden, not in the question of feeling, civil rights. It has nothing to do with that. And furthermore, I don't know how we'll be improved. We are not the best, but he doesn't choose the best. Women might be better. He didn't choose me because I was better than someone else. Even God's love is blind.
We find that a good many people don't go to church anymore. That's not to say that they cease to be Catholics or whatever, but they don't go to church. Can you still be a good Catholic and not go to church?
Not a very good one, no. And you can't be a very good club member without paying dues and without going to the club. You can't say you're a good Yankee fan unless you go and watch the Yankees play.
It's very distressful to me to find a so-called, quote, good churchgoer who is capable of prejudice.
Yes, they do not keep all of the law. They just keep some of it. And the excuse is used, well, I do not go to church because there are so many hypocrites. But there's always room for a few more.
When we look over your incredible past, there are people who have said that you should have risen to greater heights. Do you feel you should have?
No.
Why?
I do not feel that way. First of all, you're talking only about honors. And honors are accidental. it would be quite vain of me to think that I should be something else than I actually am. I'm very happy to have done what I and accomplished what I have done, but to be more than I am, no.
There's no one in the Catholic Church who has amassed as large a list of notable converts as you've been credited with, from Claire Booth Luce to Fritz Kreisler to Louis Boudens, who was the managing editor of the Daily Worker. Among those, I mean, which one fills you with the greatest pride in terms of an achievement?
Which one? I think the first one, which was the lady who conducted the boarding house in Paris when I went there to study as a young priest. I could barely speak French, so I had to talk to her with a dictionary. And hence it was a great effort. But I received her into the church. And that proved, you see, that it was nothing in my power that did it. It was simply the grace of the good Lord that created the response in her. She perhaps was the most notable because there was no relationship between cause and effect.
Are you saying there was no special magic that must be worked to make a convert?
No, because I couldn't talk her language.
What do you feel was the special ingredient that was able to work this kind of thing on people, make them converts?
First, I wanted to. After all, that's my duty. We were sent out to make disciples of all nations. I wanted to do it. It's a good way to save your soul. St. James says if you save a soul, you save your own. And at least I could do it indirectly.
Of the people that you've known, people who have crossed your life, I mean, who remained especially important to you?
Well, those who affected me. One would be a priest who did much to teach me to talk. I told you I was on the debating team. Well, the night before one of the big debates, the Notre Dame debate, he called me over to his room and he said, "Fulton, you are absolutely the worst speaker this world has ever seen. But before you leave this room, you're going to be a good one. Now stand up there in the corner and take a paragraph of your speech. Go over it." I went over it. See your mistake? Try it again. To underline certain words. Stand on your toes. Shout when you see these words. See your mistake? No. Try it again. 1 hour. 2 hours. See your mistake? Well, being naturally quick. I said to him, "Yes, I'm not natural." He said, "All right, that's all."
And that's what did it?
That is what did it.
That was an unbelievable period when you were on television opposite Milton Berle, which was Milton Berle's heyday. You became good friends, though, as a result of that.
Milton's picture is up here. He used one of my stories. When I was given an Emmy award, I found that everybody else who had received an Emmy thanked this person, that person, and so on. So when I arose, I said, well, I wish to thank my writers, too. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Well, Milton has used that as his own.
I see a picture of Jackie Gleason, too.
Yes, yes.
Do you have an affinity for comedians?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, on many anniversaries of my priesthood and my anniversaries as a bishop, I try to invite in humorous people. I will have Mass beforehand, that's serious, and the renewal of life. Then at dinner, I don't know, a humorous person is closely related to being spiritual because he never takes anything at face value. The rest of us, we see a line and we follow it. They turn very quickly with a pun or a twist of thought. A humorist is one who sees through things. Serious people are those who can't see through things. They're too thick. And God made the world with a sense of humor, so that when we looked at the sunset, well, we were to see something of his beauty. The snow, something of his purity. The mountains, his power. We were to see through all of these things. And therefore, comedians are related very much to genuine piety.
But you know, the sense of humor is something that people seem to be born with. It seems that it's nothing you can cultivate, develop. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. But it took me a long time to learn how to tell a story.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you finally learn?
By listening to other people tell stories. And I would say to myself, why is that story dull? And generally because it was too long. They didn't come to the punchline quickly enough.